Jeff Lawson, CEO, founder of Twilio, and LaFawn Davis, Global Head of Culture and Inclusion at Twilio. It's okay to clap, people. So to clap. Awesome. At Tech Inclusion, LaFawn, Jeff, thanks for being here. Thanks for coming.
Great to be here.
Cool. Year one, we just did this conference in 2015. We ended with a panel basically saying we couldn't get no CEOs to participate in 2015. Last year, we had several CEOs, particularly white male CEOs. This year, we decided that you decided to join us because this can't continue to be, or as it have been, an echo chamber conversation. So thank you. Yeah. And I think that deserves a round of applause. So jumping in right quick, and I'm going to talk to LaFawn and Jeff. I've known LaFawn since 2011. 2011. We're going to talk about her journey a little bit too, but since 2011. But Jeff, your role as a CEO of Twilio, everybody says it's the CEO role. Some people say it's everybody's role. But let's talk about your role in particular as creating an inclusive company and a diverse company and being part of this conversation. Where do you see your role in this?
Yeah, so the way I think about it, there's the tactics of what do you actually have to do to build a more diverse and inclusive environment, and I'm not the domain expert, right? I haven't really spent my career doing that, but for someone like LaFawn, whose career is helping us to execute those tactics and know what's going to work, what's really going to help, where do we focus our energy to get the most impact. I view my job as creating the environment where everyone in the company knows that this is important to the company. Everyone knows that this is a drive that's coming straight from the top, so that when we execute the tactics, we have everybody bought in. And we have everybody in the company understanding that this is important and this is a critical part of us building a great company, is actually getting diversity and inclusion right. And that we have to do it now. We can't wait until later. And so that's how I think about my role in it, to lay the foundation to create the environment where, I'll just talk louder, or not, at great peril I will talk louder, to create the environment, the right conditions for everybody to do the right thing, to spend their energy on things that matter, and to be a part of building that company that we want to build.
Awesome. So LaFawn, with that, how do your role in working with Jeff in terms of accountability, measuring, what's that channel like?
Yeah. So what was nice when I joined Twilio is that, diversity, inclusion, culture, the values, that all existed a good 3 years, I think, before I stepped in the room. And the reason that that's important is because I don't have to spend a lot of time and energy focusing on, well, what's the business case for diversity, and how do I sell this, and how do I get people to understand that it's important, and not only the diversity piece, but also about creating an inclusive workplace where people feel like they belong. I don't have to spend my energy and my cognitive capital, if you will, on that piece, because it was already there when I got there. And so with Jeff and I, understanding that Jeff is the leader of our company, fully believes in this and wants his leaders to fully believe in this and the rest of the company, it makes it easier. So I don't have an issue, slacking him or texting him or emailing him or having a conversation with him about what's going on and what we might need to do, or if I need him to step in. And just staying on the same page with what we want to do with the company. It's pretty easy to do.
That's awesome.
One of the interesting things I'll point out, I think about our collaboration and LaFawn coming in to the company. I recently saw a presentation at Grace Hopper by Freda Kapoor about they studied the tactics that companies use to try to affect diversity and inclusion outcomes, and whether or not they actually have an impact. And one of the items there was they had 5 tactics, 3 of which provably didn't work and 2 that did. And one of them that provably didn't work was hiring a head of diversity and inclusion, which I thought was interesting, right? You would think. But I think the reason I suspect, and they didn't have data to say why that is, but I suspect the reason is that some companies, they hire that role and they say, great, we're done. Right? And they say, well, we have a person, they're just going to go do their thing, and then like suddenly, magically, we'll end up with a more diverse environment. And I imagine those are the same companies where they say, or we won't, whatever, we hired. And I think that it is that collaboration that you need, right? You need to commit on many levels and in many different ways, enough leadership from the top, and then having an amazing person to actually run the tactics and ensure that we're doing it smartly and ensure that we're following through on those things. And that's how I see a lot of the, maybe the HR functions, their role in this, or a diversity and inclusion team, their role in this, is to make sure that they bring all that domain expertise and the follow through, so that we do a good job of it and we execute it well.
Yeah.
But that in a vacuum will completely fail.
Yeah. Otherwise, it just rests on the shoulders of the person that you hire.
Agreed.
Right.
Yeah, there's one person. Yeah. So both of you touched on some interesting point. There was all these things happening at Twilio before you joined.
Yes.
The data shows that you shouldn't just hire one person without doing some of the work already. So Jeff and LaFawn, LaFawn, you talked about it a little bit, but Jeff, what made it special for Twilio? I know Dom, who works there as well, and some other employees, and I've always heard Twilio in the Bay Area as being a company that gets it, a company that cares about diversity, a company that cares about inclusion. What is about, your DNA or your vision of who you are in terms of that helped Twilio start out that way, to invite people to come, to be themselves? I know that I believe the first ERG before the ERG was called Skittles, right?
Yes.
And like that permeated through the industry. We have Skittles at Twilio, right? For everyone. So what was special, or what do you think was the sauce, particularly other CEOs, executives, or this industry can learn from? That how did you get Twilio right, or what made Twilio at least better than some of the other ones over there?
So I'll say two things. And I hope that we're doing a good job, and I hope that we're doing better, but obviously the whole industry, and Twilio included, has a long way to go. I cannot take credit for that at all, right? There was an amazing group of Twilions, led by Dom, who created Skittles, who took the initiative from the ground up to start investing in building a better company and created those ERGs. And I remember I first heard about it in a planning session where we talked about getting budget for Skittles, and I'm like, what is Skittles, and why does it need budget? Like, and I remember hearing about it. Someone was telling me about this group of ERG, and I didn't even know what an ERG was at the time, and explained. I was like, that's amazing that folks are from the grassroots creating a way to build a better Twilio, and I became fully supportive immediately because one of the core values at Twilio is draw the owl. And that kind of means, there's problems we need to solve. We got to figure it out. We got to figure out how to do it. You can Google to find the meme that value is based on. But, and this was a group of Twilions living that value as it related to building a more inclusive Twilio. And I thought that was amazing. So one thing probably we did get right is making it clear that in every aspect of building the company that we have this mentality where we encourage people to take risks and do things and get stuff done. And I'm sure a lot of companies have a value that is like that. You almost have to be a startup. But I think that we encourage people to live it and express it in every part of our business, not just product needs to invent something cool, but also in just the company building aspect, and that resulted in our ERGs. And the other thing I'll point out is that one of my not so secret secrets is that when we first started Twilio, I was not focused on diversity and inclusion at all. One of our first investors were Mitch and Freda Kapoor. And I remember in the very early days of Twilio, applause for Mitch and Freda, absolutely. They would send me emails, saying like, hey, we're getting together some of our portfolio CEOs to talk about diversity and inclusion. We'd love for you to join us. And I would get these emails and I would say, Like, are you kidding me? Like, I don't have time for that. Like, I just need to make sure we can make payroll next month. I need to make sure we don't go out of business. Like, I have all these more important things to do than to worry about this luxury of diversity and inclusion. Thank you very much, I'll pass, right? And that was my initial reaction to that. I'm like, that seems like a luxury. Oh, I'm not happy that they're focused on that, but I don't have time for it, right? And then at some point after one of these emails, I started to think about it more. I'm like, well, wait a minute. When is it a good time to focus on diversity and inclusion, right? And is it when we get to the point where we're at 1,000 white male engineers? Like, then it'll be time, suddenly? And of course, we know the answer is like, well, if you do get to that state, and many companies do, that's exactly when it's too late. That's exactly when it's almost impossible to build a diverse environment once you've built one that is completely not diverse. And to me, I sort of had this moment where I was just like, well, it's like the old proverb, like, when's the best time to plant a tree? 20 years ago. When's the second best time? Right now, right? And so that's when sort of I started to realize that and started to invest in my time and my energy in understanding the issue and understanding what we could do as a company. And I think that was an important sort of change of thought for me. But I initially, I am a very, majority in every way person, and it was not on my radar that this was an important thing in the early days of Twilio.
Cool. Well, thanks for your authenticity and realness and honesty on that. You are not alone in that process, as you know.
Well, and I tell that story just so other people can think about it. If they're still not yet in the camp of like, hey, this is important, it's okay. I wasn't there at one point either. But here's how I thought about it, and maybe that can encourage other people who have not yet figured that out to think about it differently.
Yeah. We've seen a lot of change in the ecosystem now with so many early stage startups. It's like, how can they get this right now? So it's great to hear how the work that we all been doing has affected the ecosystem, so people can have those conversations earlier. But it also still shows something about your character. Because I'm assuming that ERG Skittles got the sponsorship money that they asked for.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, they did.
I don't remember the exact numbers, but yes, we did. I don't know if they asked for like $20 million. Like, here's,
It happened. It's still
everybody.
It's still there. And for those of you who don't know, Skittles is actually, it's not affiliated with an affinity. So it is for everyone that just believes in diversity and inclusion. And that was the very first ERG that started. There are other ERGs now that followed, but that was really the first one that got the grassroots going.
Yeah, cool. So thank you. So LaFawn, like I said, I've known you for years, and you've been a supporter and friend. Thank you. Really, really appreciate it. I honestly don't know if I'll be sitting in this chair in San Francisco right now if it wasn't for LaFawn. That's how far we go back, and thank you. We're talking about friends and allies. This is one. Really appreciate it. On that note, when we first met, you were at Google. Then your journey with the PayPal.
Yahoo, then PayPal.
Yahoo, that's right. Forgot about Yahoo. Sorry. Well, and they sold anyway. Another story, another conversation. Google, Yahoo, eBay, PayPal, now Twilio.
Yep.
What was the journey like? What's some of the lessons learned? Can you give us some nuggets where like this is how you got support, this is how you got buy-in, this is how you created change, this is how you fought against the resistance, the rebels. Give us some nuggets.
Well,
right?
we don't have that much time to get into all of that, but so I have been in this space for well over a decade, and it's really been a journey, quite honestly. It really just started off with diversity, which was just demographics. How do we hire more people that look different than what we have right now? And that was an industry focus. And then it moved into the inclusion space, which is really around you do all this work and you spend all this money for people to come, but you don't really have an environment where people feel like they're included or have a seat at the table or that their voice can be heard. And so companies started to realize that at the investment level, we really should do a better job in having kind of workplace that's inclusive. Now it's moving more into the belonging space, right? So inclusive is an active thing where you want to make sure your workplace is inclusive. You want to make sure people feel like their voice is heard. But belonging is almost a personal sense. I feel like I belong there. I feel like I belong on a team, at a company. where it's not necessarily about your gender or ethnicity or your age. It's anything. It's any commonality. We're tribal people, right? So everybody wants to find their tribe, whatever that means. And companies are starting to realize that the more you have an environment where people feel like they belong, then people give back so much more, spend so much more effort. It goes beyond just having a seat at the table. Where we need to go next is equality, and I think we're a long way off from that.
Yeah. But thank you for that vision, equality. That's where we need to go. Yes, in all aspects. Yes.
Right.
We're in San Francisco, and I moved from North Carolina to San Francisco because I saw the future here. I saw how this ecosystem, this city impacts the world. I saw how the world looks at San Francisco and views San Francisco as a thought leader. I also see the egos in San Francisco as like, yeah, we make stuff for the world and you all use our stuff. But we here, and the world does look at this viewpoint. Why is it important for Twilio to remain a leader in San Francisco in terms of impact, community, inclusion, participating in events like this? So LaFawn, you all was at Grace Hopper a couple weeks ago. Why is it important? Why is it important for us to get it right here?
Well, I mean, I think that, well, you have a lot of the energy, right? I think that, California, San Francisco is often a few decades ahead of the rest of the world in a lot of these issues. And I think that that's probably what draws a lot of people to this area of the world, because they do want to see change. They want to be a part of that change. They want to be leaders in it. And I think that part of our role, building companies here, and one of the reasons why we've, focused a lot of energy on that is like, I think that companies in tech want to be leaders. They want to initiate change. That's what draws a lot of people to California, to the tech industry, to the things that we do. But I think it's not enough to say we're just going to do that because we created products, because we built an app and it's on 1 billion phones now, right? I think we also have the opportunity to do that culturally and as a society. And I think that's as exciting as the tech that we create. And I think that probably a lot of our employees feel that way. And one of the things that I'll point out is I think that investing in these initiatives, investing in getting diversity and inclusion right, investing in equality, that actually will make us more competitive as a company and more competitive in hiring and employing a better workforce and attracting more people to Twilio that ultimately help us fulfill the mission of the company. And so it's both parts of like change the world with your tech, change the world with like all sorts of things. And by the way, it's not just the idea that we're invested in these ideas that changes the world. It's also investing in the ideas that actually allow us to actually succeed in our mission as a company, because we will have a competitive advantage in who wants to work at Twilio, who succeeds in working at Twilio, and who will choose to work at Twilio, who won't choose to work at any number of other companies. That'll help us to do that.
That's great.
And I think taking it a step further, doing this, people assume that diversity hasn't existed in tech, like that it's just existed over the past couple of years, right? Yeah. But that's not true. That's not true. And it was even existing a little bit before I started, a little over a decade ago. And I think because of that, because tech has the ability to change the world, we almost have a responsibility as we're creating these amazing products that are changing the world to think about how else we want to change the world with not just the products we create, like Jeff was saying, but also how else we can affect making sure that we remove barriers and access to entry, that we're creating real opportunities, that we're looking at the future of not just the products we're creating right now, but for the products we want to create in the future. And so we can't do that unless we broaden our definition of what it means to be in tech, right? What it means to have the skill set to be in tech. We can't do that if we don't remove the barriers to get into tech in the first place. And so I think because Silicon Valley and the Bay Area is so successful and having the tech hub here, we almost have a responsibility to make sure that we are also reaching out to the rest of the company where there's lots of people with great skill sets to make sure that they can also contribute to the great products that we want to create and release in the future.
Awesome. Agreed.
It is interesting, right? You think about tech companies, tech as an industry, and tech companies have this very unique stage that's fairly unprecedented, I believe, in the history of the world, which is, if you're, let's say, a software developer, you can open a thing called a text editor with a blinking cursor, write some magical text, click publish to an app store, and suddenly 1 billion people can interact with that thing overnight. And if you think about the history of human beings creating things in the world, you could usually impact a few dozen, a few hundred, a few thousand people for most of the history of our species, right? And so the advancements we've made as far as tech have actually created unprecedented scale for what we build, such that I remember our very first office down on the pier, Instagram was in there with us, and they were 3 people, and you had the president with an Instagram account. You're like, it's like 3 or 4 people. Like, how is that possible? That's amazing. And so with that power, I think, comes responsibility, right? And so we have this ability to attract attention and touch so many more people around the world with the products we create, the skills that we have. It's the same thing that also becomes a tool to actually do even more with that. Kind of like LaFawn was saying. So
A tool to do more with the responsibility.
yeah.
Yeah, agreed. One last question. Twilio has this kind of reward culture thing, kind of cool thing you all do when you build a product. You get a red jacket. Can you tell a little bit about that? So, yeah.
Absolutely. You got one.
Yeah, I got one.
You didn't wear it today.
Yeah, I should have worn mine today.
He has one.
So yeah, Vivek has one in the front row. So it's pretty awesome, actually. So when you start as a company, you are encouraged, regardless of your role, whether you're technical or not, to learn how to build something on the Twilio platform. And I'm not technical in any way, shape, or form, but now I kind of feel like I am, because what you do is you go through boot camp that's provided at Twilio, and then you build something on the platform. And actually, Vivek, who's in the front row here today, is the one that taught me how to code, and it was awesome. Like, coding is part magic, part science. I don't care what anybody says. You can create some stuff. And if you find me after the conference, I will actually show you what my app is, and I'll send you the number so you can see what it is. But that sets off, I think, this amazing culture of creating doers. That's what we call people that build on the platform. And you have people inside the company that are not just in engineering, but in roles like mine, that are in finance, that are in legal, that are in sales, learning how to build, learning how to code. So you really do put yourself in the customer's shoes when you learn how to code on the platform that you're creating and you're selling.
And it's interesting, I actually think that in some ways that was a prerequisite to Hatch.
Yes.
Which is our new apprenticeship program that we just launched earlier this year, in order to bring graduates of coding boot camps and give them an opportunity to join Twilio, to get investment in mentorship in order to help them continue to develop, and then place them on teams with the goal of every one of those apprentices getting hired full-time by that team at the end of the apprenticeship. So we're really excited. Vivek actually leads Hatch, and we've got our first cohort. It's about halfway through the program right now, and we're really excited about this. But I think it was very much inspired by that the tradition that we've had of believing that a wide variety of people, even if your history has not historically been coding, can do this.
Yes.
And can, if they want, to become a part of this part of our industry and to learn to code and to become a part of development. Yeah. And so we're really excited about that.
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
Cool. That's cool. Yeah, he's doing a solo talk later today at a breakout stage about the Twilio Apprentice program. And congrats on launching that.
Really, this whole thing was just a setup for
yeah. So
talks.
learn about Twilio Apprentice program later next talk. Yeah, and want to say thank you. Thank you all for coming. Thank you for my red jacket. I built a product on Twilio a couple years ago.
Yeah, you did.
It was fun. I'm going to build again. I love building. Jeff has been an inspiration to me for a while as LaFawn. I went to one of the very first Twilio conferences when I came to San Francisco, and Jeff was talking about just do it, draw the owl. And so thank you for that. Thank you, LaFawn.
Thank you.
Thank you all for being here. Great. Thank you.
Thanks for having us, Wayne.